Elias Croft fell to his knees in the dust of the alley, his big calloused hands shaking as he reached for the trembling little boy hiding behind the barrel. The child weighed nothing. Nothing at all. "Easy now, son," Elias whispered, his voice cracking for the first time in 20 years. "Ain't nobody gonna hurt you no more." Behind him, 2 starving girls watched with hollow eyes, and in that moment, the cowboy made a vow that would tear an entire town apart. If you're with me, please subscribe and stay until the very end. Comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far this story has traveled. The town of Redemption Creek didn't deserve its name. Elias Croft had ridden into 100 dusty Wyoming towns in his 43 years, and he could tell you within 10 minutes which ones had a soul and which ones had sold theirs. Redemption Creek had sold its soul a long time ago. He tied his bay gelding to the post outside Hadley's Mercantile and tipped his hat back, squinting into the late July sun. He needed flour. He needed coffee. He needed to be on his way to the line shack he'd taken on the Bar W, spread 15 miles north, where a man could go a whole month without speaking to another living soul. That was how Elias preferred it. But the Lord, it seemed, had other plans for him that afternoon. He heard the sound first, a small, wet sound, like a kitten that had given up crying. Elias paused on the boardwalk, one hand on the door of the Mercantile, and turned his head slow toward the alley between Hadley's and the saloon next door. "Hush, Abby, hush now. He'll hear you." A girl's voice, young, sharp with fear. "My belly hurts, Ruthie. It hurts." "I know it does, baby. I know. But you gotta be quiet. Eat slow." Elias took his hand off the door and stepped soft as he could in those big riding boots toward the mouth of the alley. What he saw there stopped him cold. 2 little girls, no more than 7 and 5, were crouched beside a tin trash barrel behind the saloon. The older one had her arm around the smaller one's shoulders. They were eating. Eating what some drunk had thrown out the back door of the saloon the night before. Bread crusts, a chicken bone with maybe 2 strings of meat on it, the peeled rind of an old apple. The older girl saw him first. She froze, bread crust halfway to her mouth. "Run, Abby," she whispered. The little one looked up, saw the man at the end of the alley, and started to cry. "Easy now," Elias said, and he held up both his hands, real slow, the way a man does when he comes up on a wild horse. "Easy. I ain't gonna hurt you. I ain't here to hurt nobody." "We didn't steal it, mister." The older girl was on her feet now, her body planted like a fence post between him and her sister. "It was throwed out. It was throwed out and we took it. That ain't stealin'." "No, miss," Elias said quietly. "That sure ain't stealin'. You gonna tell the sheriff?" Something cold moved in Elias's chest at the way she said it, the way her voice went tight on the word sheriff, the way her little chin came up like she'd been hit before and was bracing for the next one. "No, miss," he said again. "I ain't gonna tell the sheriff a thing." She didn't believe him. He could see that plain enough. But she didn't run either because the little one couldn't run, and Elias understood sudden and hot behind his eyes that this child, this 7-year-old child, had decided a long time ago that she would die before she left her sister behind. "What's your name, miss?" he asked. She didn't answer. "My name's Elias. Elias Croft. I run cattle up at the Bar W. You ever been up that way?" She didn't answer. "That apple rind ain't fit for a hog," he said. "I was just on my way into Hadley's to buy some supper. I got more money than sense, and I ain't got nobody to share it with. You and your sister'd be doing me a kindness if you'd let me. We don't take charity. It ain't charity, miss. It's a trade. You come on inside with me and you tell me your names, and you let me buy you a real supper, and in trade I get to eat with company for the first time in," he had to stop and figure it, "reckon 8-9 months. That's a fair trade." The little one tugged on her sister's skirt. "Ruthie, I'm hungry, Ruthie." The older girl, Ruthie, then? Ruth looked down at her sister, and Elias saw something break in her face. Not break exactly, just give a little, like a dam wall holding back a flood that had been pressing for too long. "What about Tommy?" the little one whispered. Ruth's eyes snapped back to Elias, and that was when he heard the third sound. Behind a second barrel, deeper in the alley, half hidden behind a stack of empty whiskey crates, something scraped. A shoe on dirt. A breath caught and held. "Tommy," Elias said softly. He didn't move, didn't take a step. "That your brother?" Ruth's whole body had gone rigid. "Mister, please," she said, and her voice cracked clean in two. "Please don't tell. Please. He's just little. He didn't do nothing. He's just so little." "How old is he, miss?" "5. He's just 5. Tommy." Elias crouched down right there in the alley, big knees popping, and rested his forearms on his thighs, so he'd be small as he could make himself. "Tommy, my name's Elias. I got a horse out front named Banjo. Banjo's the friendliest old fella you ever met. He likes apple cores. You like apples, Tommy." "Nothing. Tommy, your sister Ruth here is awful brave. She's been taking real good care of you, ain't she?" A small sound, not a word. Just a small wet sound. "I ain't gonna come back there, Tommy. I'm just gonna stay right here on my knees in this dirt. But I sure would like to meet you. I ain't never had no little brother." The whiskey crates shifted. A face appeared. Small. Thin. Too thin. Hair the color of dust, and eyes the color of a winter sky, and a smear of something dark across one cheek that might have been dirt and might have been blood. He couldn't have weighed 30 pounds. "There he is," Elias said, and his voice came out rougher than he meant it. "There's Tommy." The boy didn't speak. He stared at Elias and held a little wooden horse against his chest with both hands like it was the only thing in the world he owned, which Elias suspected it was. "Tommy don't talk much," Ruth said quickly. "He don't talk to nobody. So don't think he's being rude, mister. He just don't." "That's all right, miss. A man don't have to talk to be heard." Elias nodded at the little wooden horse. "That's a fine horse you got there, Tommy. You whittle that yourself." Tommy shook his head. Just barely. A tiny no. "Pa made it." That was Abby, the smallest girl, speaking for the first time. "Pa made it for him before." "Abby." Ruth's voice was flat, sharp. "Hush." Abby hushed. Elias kept his eyes on the boy. "Tommy, I'm gonna stand up real slow now, and then me and your sisters are gonna walk into that store right there and get some supper. Bacon, beans, bread that ain't a week old. You hungry, son?" Tommy didn't move. "Will you come, Tommy? Will you come with your sisters?" The boy looked at Ruth, and Ruth, after a long breath, gave a single small nod. Tommy crawled out from behind the crates. He stood up on legs no bigger around than broomsticks. He walked careful as an old man to where his sisters were, and he reached up and took Ruth's hand. He never let go of the wooden horse. "All right then," Elias said, and he stood. "All right." The bell over Hadley's door jangled, and every head in the mercantile turned at once. Elias felt the children flinch behind him. Mrs. Hadley was at the counter, a broad-shouldered woman in a starched apron with a face like a closed door. She'd been weighing out flour for an old farmer in a stained vest, and her hands stopped moving the second she saw what Elias had brought into her store. "Mr. Croft." "Ma'am?" "Those Calloway children ain't allowed in this establishment." So that was their name. Calloway. "Pardon, ma'am?" "You heard me. Out. All 3 of them. Now." Elias didn't move. He felt Tommy's grip tighten on Ruth's hand. He felt Ruth herself go absolutely still behind his shoulder the way a deer does in a clearing. "Mrs. Hadley," Elias said, and he kept his voice gentle as a cat's paw. "I aim to spend a good deal of money in your store this afternoon. I need flour. I need beans. I need a side of bacon and 2 pounds of coffee and a sack of those penny candies you got there in the jar. Now I figured I'd give my business to you. But if you'd rather, I rode on down to the next town." "Don't you sass me, Elias Croft. You know good and well why those children—" "I don't, ma'am. I don't know a thing about it. I'm a stranger here. All I know is they're hungry." The old farmer in the vest snorted. "Hungry. They're thieves is what they are. Their daddy was a horse thief, and their mama wasn't no better, and—" "Sir!" Elias turned slow, and something in the way he turned made the old man take a half step back. I don't believe I asked your opinion. Now look here. I don't believe I asked it, sir. The farmer's mouth worked. He looked at Mrs. Hadley. Mrs. Hadley looked at the children. Ruth had her chin up again, that fence-post chin, and Abby was hiding her face in her sister's skirt, and Tommy. Tommy was looking at the jar of penny candy on the counter, the way a starving man looks at heaven. Mrs. Hadley saw him look. For a single second, something moved across her hard face. Something that might have been shame, might have been pity, might have been the memory of her own children grown and gone when they were small. Then it was gone. "Take 'em out back," she said. "I'll fix you a sack. But they don't come in here again, Mr. Croft. The sheriff's been real clear on that." There it was. The sheriff. "Has he now?" Elias said softly. "He has. And you'd do well to mind him. You're new here. You don't know how things work." "Reckon I'm learning fast, ma'am." He herded the children back out onto the boardwalk. The sun hit them hard. Abby buried her face deeper in Ruth's skirt. Tommy still hadn't spoken a word. "Mister," Ruth said. "Mister, you ought to just leave us. You're making it worse." "Worse? How, miss?" "Worse, 'cause now Sheriff Monroe's gonna hear. He's gonna hear before sundown, and then—" Her voice cut off. "And then what, Ruth?" She wouldn't look at him. "Ruth? And then what?" "And then he'll come find us, and he'll take Tommy." Elias went very still. "Why would the sheriff want to take your brother, miss?" "'Cause he says we ain't fit. He says girls can sleep in the church basement on cold nights, but a boy ought to go to the orphan train. Says a boy ought to be put to work on a farm. Says we can't keep him." "And you don't want him to go?" She looked up at him then. Just a little girl, 7 years old, with eyes 100 years older than that. "He's all we got left, mister." A door slammed somewhere down the street. Boots on the boardwalk. Heavy ones with spurs. Ruth's whole body jolted. "That's him," she whispered. "That's him, mister. Oh God, that's him." Elias didn't turn around. He bent down on one knee real quick and looked Ruth straight in the eye. "You listen to me, miss. You listen good. You take your sister and your brother around the back of this store. You go to my horse, the bay tied at the post yonder. You saw him when we come in, and you stay low behind him. You don't make a sound. You wait for me. You hear? Mister, you hear me, Ruth?" "Yes, sir." "Go." She went. She moved like a small soldier who'd been taking orders her whole short life. Abby went with her. Tommy clutched his wooden horse and ran on those broomstick legs, and Elias watched them disappear around the corner of the mercantile, just as the boots came up behind him. "Well, well!" Elias straightened up slow, set his hat right on his head, turned around. The man who stood in front of him was tall, broad in the chest, going to fat in the belly, a gold star on his vest, a waxed mustache, eyes the color of pond water. "Sheriff Monroe, I take it." "You take it right." Monroe smiled, and there was nothing in the smile. "And you'd be the new hand up at the Bar W. Croft, ain't it?" "Yes, sir." "Mr. Croft, I hear you been talking to some children in my town. I been buying some children some supper in your town, sheriff. That a fact." Monroe rocked back on his heels. "Well, Mr. Croft, I appreciate the Christian impulse, I surely do. But them three is wards of this town, and the disposition of 'em is a matter for the law. And I am the law in Redemption Creek." "Wards, you say?" "I say. Their folks is dead then." A pause, just a beat, but Elias caught it. "Their folks is dead." "Yes, sir. Tragic business. Fire at their cabin out by the creek, 3 months back now." "That a fact?" "That's a fact. And you investigated it personal, I reckon." Monroe's smile thinned. "I did." "And you found nothing suspicious?" "I found a lamp got knocked over. I found 3 little ones hiding in the root cellar. I found a man and his wife burned up in their bed. That's what I found." "You got some kind of interest in this matter, Mr. Croft?" "No, sir." Elias kept his voice flat. "Just making conversation." "Then make less of it. And when you ride out of here today, you ride out alone. Them children belongs to the town. The town will see to him. You understand me, Mr. Croft." Elias looked at the sheriff, looked at the gold star on his chest, looked at the small, mean eyes above the waxed mustache. He thought about a 5-year-old boy with broomstick legs holding a wooden horse his daddy carved for him. He thought about a 7-year-old girl who was ready to die before she'd let her family be torn apart. He thought about a fire 3 months back, and a sheriff who'd investigated it personal, and a town where children had to eat from trash barrels. "Yes, sir, Sheriff," Elias said quietly. "I understand you fine." Monroe nodded satisfied, tipped his hat, walked on down the boardwalk, spurs jingling. The second he was around the corner, Elias was moving. He went into Hadley's, threw a fistful of greenbacks on the counter. "The sack, ma'am, fast as you can." "Mr. Croft." "Fast, ma'am." Mrs. Hadley moved. She didn't ask questions. She'd seen the sheriff out the window, and maybe that something that had moved across her face earlier was moving again. She handed him a flour sack heavy with bread, jerky hard cheese, a tin of peaches, and Elias saw with a small hard ache a fistful of those penny candies which he had not asked for, and which she did not charge him for. "Mr. Croft." "Ma'am." "You'd best ride hard." "I aim to." "And Mr. Croft." Her voice dropped. "Their mama, Sarah Calloway. She was my cousin's girl. She was a good woman." Elias stopped at the door. What happened to her Mrs. Hadley? The woman's mouth worked. She looked toward the window. She looked back. Nothing happened to her Mr. Croft. "There was a fire, that's all. There was a fire." "Yes, ma'am." "Now go." He went. Banjo was standing patient at the post, and huddled against the bay's far side, hidden from the street, were 3 small ragged children clinging to one another like the last living things on earth. Elias swung the sack over the saddle horn. He bent down. He picked Tommy up first because the boy was smallest, and he set him careful in the saddle. Then Abby, who was crying again, soft and steady. Then Ruth, who climbed up herself and would not let him help her. "Where we goin', mister?" she whispered. Elias took the reins, started walking. The bay walked with him easy, the children small and silent on his back. "Home, miss," Elias said. "We're going home." "We ain't got no home, mister." "You do now." They walked out of Redemption Creek with the late sun hot on their backs, and Elias Croft did not look behind him. But he could feel the eyes on him from every window. And he could feel somewhere in the dust of that town the sheriff, with the waxed mustache, watching him go. Halfway down the trail, when the town was a smudge behind them and the cottonwoods threw long, thin shadows across the road, Elias heard the smallest sound he'd ever heard in his life. "Mister." He stopped walking. He turned around slow. Tommy was looking down at him from the saddle, the wooden horse pressed to his chest, the pond water eyes wet and steady. "Mister," the boy said again. His voice was hardly a whisper, hardly a thing at all. "It weren't no lamp." Elias felt his blood go cold. "What's that, son?" "It weren't no lamp." Tommy's small mouth worked. "I seen him. I seen the man do it. He had a star." Behind him, Ruth made a sound like someone had struck her. "Tommy." "He had a star, Ruthie." Tommy was crying now, slow, like he didn't know how. "I seen him. I seen him pour the oil." Elias Croft stood very still in the middle of the road, 3 orphan children on his horse, the dust of Redemption Creek still on his boots, and he understood with a terrible quiet clarity that he had walked into something a long way bigger than 3 hungry kids in an alley. He reached up, put his big calloused hand over Tommy's small one on the wooden horse. "You're safe now, son," he said. "You hear me. You're safe now." And in the gold light of that long Wyoming summer evening, he started walking again north toward the Bar W, toward the line shack, toward whatever was coming for them all. The road north out of Redemption Creek went quiet for a long stretch after Tommy spoke. Elias kept walking. He kept his big hand on the boy's small one. He kept his other hand on Banjo's reins. And he kept his mouth shut because he had learned a long time ago that when a child finally tells you the thing they have been holding behind their teeth, you do not pry open the door any wider. You just stand there and let them come through it. Tommy. Ruth's voice was thin. Tommy, you ain't supposed to. Miss, Elias said quietly. Leave him be. You don't understand, mister. I'm trying to miss. That's all I'm trying to do. Abby had stopped crying. She was watching Tommy with eyes too big for her face. Ruthie, did Tommy see something bad? Hush, Abby. Did he? I said hush. Elias kept walking. Banjo's hooves struck the road in a slow, patient rhythm. The cottonwoods whispered above them. A red-tailed hawk cut a wide arc against the sky and was gone. Tommy, Elias said soft as he could. Son, that man with the star. You ever seen him before that night? Tommy nodded. Just barely. Where, son? At our house. He come to our house. How many times? Tommy's small face screwed up. He held up 3 fingers, then a 4th. 4 times. The boy nodded. And the last time he come, what'd he do, Tommy? He yelled at Pa. Tommy don't. Ruth had her hands on his shoulders now from behind, the way a mother bird folds wings over her chick. Mister, please don't ask him no more. Miss Ruth. Elias stopped Banjo, stopped the whole party right there in the road. I got to ask. You know I got to ask. Why? Because if I don't know what's coming, I can't keep you safe from it. You hear me, miss, I can't keep 3 children alive in the dark. I got to know what's chasing us. She stared at him. Her chin came up. And then it broke just a little, and she looked 7 years old for the first time since he'd met her. He wanted Pa to sign a paper, she said. What paper? A paper for the land. Our land. Pa wouldn't sign it. He said the land was for us. He said the land was Ma's from her daddy, and he wouldn't sign it for no man. And the sheriff, he came back. He came back at night, Ruth whispered, and there was a fire. Abby started crying again, but quieter this time. Not a baby's cry. Something older. Tommy didn't make a sound. He just held on to the wooden horse and stared at Elias with those pond sky eyes. All right, Elias said. All right, miss. That's enough for now. You done good. You hear me? You done real good. He turned Banjo's head and started walking again. His mind was running ahead of his boots. 3 months. 3 months Sheriff Monroe had been letting these children eat out of trash barrels in the alley behind the saloon. 3 months he had let them sleep in a church basement. 3 months he had been waiting. Elias understood it now, slow and sure as a man understands the smell of smoke waiting for them to die. Waiting for the cold to take them, or the hunger or the fever. Because dead children couldn't testify about a night and a lamp and a man with a gold star. And the boy, the orphan train. A boy ought to be put to work on a farm. That wasn't charity, that was disposal. Tommy was the one who had seen, and the sheriff knew it, and the sheriff was waiting on a wagon to come through and take the boy 300 miles away to some farm in Nebraska, where nobody'd ever hear his voice again. Elias Croft felt something he had not felt since the war. He felt it cold, and he felt it slow, and he kept his face still as a stone so the children wouldn't see. Mr. Croft, it was Ruth. Yes, miss. How far is it to your place? 2 more hours, miss. Maybe less if Banjo don't tire. And then what? Then we eat. Then you sleep. Then I figure out what comes after. And if the sheriff comes... Elias did not answer right away. Mr. Croft, he won't come tonight, miss. How do you know? Because he don't know yet what your brother told me. He thinks I'm just a fool riding off with 3 hungry kids. He's gonna let the night pass. He's gonna sleep on it. He's gonna ride out tomorrow with a couple of his deputies and a piece of paper saying he's got a right to take the boy. And by the time he gets there, miss, I aim to be ready for him. Ready how? That ain't for you to fret on. I've been fretting on it 3 months, mister. He looked up at her. He saw her face. He saw the thing in her face that was old and hard and tired and 7 years old all at once. "Yes, miss," he said. "I reckon you have." The line shack at the Bar W sat in a little fold of land between two low hills where a creek ran cold off the high country and a stand of aspen leaned into the prevailing wind. It wasn't much. One room, a stove, a bunk, a washstand, a peg for a coat and a shelf for a Bible, and a window that looked east toward the rising sun. Elias lifted the children down one at a time. Tommy first, then Abby, then Ruth, who again would not be helped, and climbed down on her own. "Inside," he said. "Go on. Doors open." They went in slow. All three of them clutched together like one creature with 6 legs. He heard them stop in the middle of the floor. "Mister," Abby's voice. "Mister, is that a bed?" "That's a bed, miss." "A real one?" "Real as I can make it." There was a small silence. He heard Tommy say something, almost a whisper. He couldn't make out the words. "He says is the bed for us, mister." Ruth's voice, tight again. "Bed's for the 3 of you, miss. I'll make a pallet on the floor." "You sleepin' in here?" "Miss Ruth, I'm sleepin' between you and that door tonight and any other night until this thing is done. You got my word on it." The silence inside the cabin lasted a beat. Then he heard Abby start to cry. Not the hopeless kind. The other kind. The kind that comes when a body has been holding too tight for too long and finally finds something to lean against. Elias stayed outside on the step. He took off his hat. He ran his hand back through his hair. He looked at the sky, which was going pink at its edges, and he said very quietly to nobody, Lord, I'm gonna need some help on this one." Then he went in to feed his children. He did not know yet that he had thought the words his children, but he had. Inside, he opened the flour sack from Hadley's. He laid out the bread and the cheese and the jerky and the tin of peaches on the small plank table by the stove. He gave them each a tin cup and ladled out cold water from the bucket. "Eat," he said. "Eat slow. You eat too fast on an empty belly, you'll get sick." Ruth ate slow. She watched him while she ate. Her eyes never left his hands. Abby ate slow because Ruth was making her. Tommy did not eat at all. Tommy. Elias crouched down by the table. "Son, you got to eat." The boy shook his head. "Why not, son?" Tommy looked at the bread, looked up at Elias. "He says he ain't hungry no more, mister." Ruth translating. "He says his belly hurts when he eats too much." "All right." Elias didn't push. He picked up a small piece of cheese no bigger than his thumbnail. "Just this much then. Just this. For me." The boy took it, chewed it slow, swallowed. Elias gave him another piece the same size. By the time the sun was full down, Tommy had eaten 3 pieces of cheese, half a slice of bread, and 1 peach slice that he held in his mouth a long time before he could make himself swallow it. Then he laid his head down on the table and closed his eyes. "He's tired, mister." Ruth was already lifting him. "He gets tired fast." "I'll carry him, miss." "No, I got him." She carried her brother to the bunk. She laid him down. She pulled the blanket over him. She kissed the top of his dusty head with a tenderness that did not belong on the face of a child. And Elias Croft turned away because something in his chest had cracked clean in half, and he did not want her to see. When all 3 were in the bunk, Tommy in the middle, Ruth and Abby curled around him like 2 halves of a shell. Elias sat down at the table and put his head in his hands. He sat that way a long time. Then he got up. He went to the saddlebag he'd brought in and unbuckled it. He took out his old Colt revolver, which he had not worn in town, because he had not thought he would need it, and he checked each chamber slow and careful by the light of the stove. 6 bullets. He had 6 bullets. He laid the gun on the table. He sat down again, and he did not sleep, and he watched the door. Sometime before dawn, Tommy started screaming. Not loud, not like a child screams, like something small caught in a trap, small and high and breathless and over and over. Eh, 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 eh. Elias was up before he was awake. He crossed the room in 2 strides. Ruth had Tommy already. She had him sitting up and she was rocking him, and she was whispering, "It's all right, Tommy. It's all right, baby. Ruthie's here. Ruthie's right here." "He's burning up." Abby's voice small and scared. "Ruthie, he's burning up." Elias put his palm to the boy's forehead. His palm came back hot. "How long he been like this?" "He gets fevers, mister." Ruth's voice was flat with exhaustion. "He's had 'em since the fire. He gets 'em when he's scared. He gets 'em when he runs too long. He gets 'em from the smoke." From the smoke. He breathed it. That night. He breathed it bad. Elias did not let his face change. He went to the basin. He wet a rag. He came back. He pressed it to Tommy's forehead, and the boy gave a small wet sound that was almost a word. "Pa." It was the first time the boy had said it. "Pa." "I ain't your pa, son." Elias's voice came out hoarse. "I ain't your pa. But I'm here. You hear me, Tommy? I'm right here." The boy's small hand came up and grabbed 2 fingers of Elias's right hand. He held on. He held on for a long time. By the time the sun came up, the fever had broken. Tommy was asleep again, his cheek against Elias's forearm, and Ruth had finally let her own eyes close, and Abby was snoring the small light snore of a child who has not had a full belly in a very long time. Elias sat still and let them sleep. He was still sitting still when he heard the hoofbeats. 1 horse. Not 3. Not a posse. 1 horse coming up the trail at a steady walk. A man who was not in a hurry. Elias eased his fingers free of Tommy's grip. He crossed the room. He picked up the colt. He stepped outside and pulled the door shut behind him. The rider was an old man on a sorrel mare. White beard, dusty black hat, a buffalo gun across the saddle. "Mornin'," the old man said. "Mornin'. You'd be the new hand." "Croft, Elias Croft." "Caleb Worth. I run the Bar W." "Mr. Worth." Elias touched the brim of his hat. He did not lower the colt all the way. "Didn't expect you out so early. Didn't expect to be out so early." The old man dismounted. He moved stiff. He was older than he looked from a distance, and he looked old. "Got a visit from Sheriff Monroe an hour ago. He was looking for you." "Was he?" "He was. He says you took some property of the town. 3 children. He says he'd appreciate me riding out and informing you that the law would be along to retrieve 'em sometime today." Elias did not move. "You gonna let him?" Caleb Worth said. "No, sir." "That a fact. Mr. Worth, them ain't property. Them's 3 children. The youngest of 'em watched the sheriff burn his folks alive in their bed 3 months back, and the sheriff has spent every day since then waiting for that boy to die, so the boy can't talk." The old man went very still. "You sayin' that," Caleb Worth said, "or you knowin' that? The boy told me." The boy, 5 years old, watched it happen. Pa wouldn't sign over a piece of land. The sheriff come back at night with a tin of lamp oil. Caleb Worth was quiet a long time. He looked off across the hills. A meadowlark sang somewhere. "Sarah Calloway," he said finally. "Yes, sir." "I knew her daddy. Knew him 40 years. Hard Rock Jensen. He homesteaded that piece on Beaver Creek when there wasn't nothing out here but sioux and antelope. He left it to her free and clear. Free and clear, Mr. Croft. And the sheriff wanted it. The sheriff has been wanting a lot of things last 2 years. Land along the creek, water rights, anything Union Pacific might come along and lay rail across. He's been buying it cheap or taking it free. And the folks who don't sell," Caleb Worth's mouth went tight. "The folks who don't sell have a way of meetin' with accidents." "How many?" "4, that I know of. 3 families and 1 old widower. The Calloways was the 4th. Mr. Worth." Elias looked at him steady. "You knowed all this, and you didn't say nothin', Mr. Croft." The old man's eyes were tired. "I'm 71 years old. I got a wife with the dropsy and a son who died at Antietam and a ranch I can't run no more without help. The sheriff offered to buy this place 6 months back for a price that would have kept Mary in laudanum till the Lord called her home. I told him no. And then my best stock dog turned up dead in the yard with his throat cut. So you tell me, Mr. Croft. You tell me what an old man does." Elias looked at him a long beat. "He helps the new hand," he said quietly. "That's what he does, Mr. Worth." The old man's mouth twitched. "Reckon he does. How long I got, you reckon?" "Monroe rode out east when he left me. Took 2 deputies. They was making for the Calloway place first. He don't know yet you brought him up here." "How do you know that?" "Because I told him you'd ridden on toward the Powder River with a sack of supplies and 3 children that wasn't your business. I told him you was making for the railhead at Casper to put him on the orphan train your own self." Elias stared at him. "He believed you. He wanted to." "Mr. Worth, you buy us time, Mr. Croft. You buy us till sundown maybe. You best use it." "Use it how?" "Use it. That land of theirs, the Calloway place, there's a deed. Sarah's daddy filed it at the territorial office in Cheyenne, and there's a copy in the courthouse at Buffalo. The sheriff can't get at the Cheyenne copy without a long ride and a lot of explaining. The Buffalo copy he might have already destroyed. But," the old man's eyes sharpened, "but Sarah Calloway was a careful woman, Mr. Croft. Her daddy raised her careful. If I know that family, there's a 3rd copy. Somewhere on that property. Somewhere a man wouldn't think to look." "You mean for me to ride to the homestead?" "I mean for you to ride to the homestead before Monroe figures out you ain't on the road to Casper. You find that deed, Mr. Croft. You find that deed, you ride hard for Cheyenne, and you put it in the hands of the territorial marshal. The territorial marshal hates Frank Monroe like a dog hates a snake. Has for years. He's been waiting on a reason." Elias was silent. "Mr. Worth, I can't leave them children. I'll come stay with them. With respect, sir, you can't shoot the way you used to." "Mr. Croft." The old man's mouth set in a hard line. "I shot at Shiloh, and I shot at Vicksburg, and I shot at Cold Harbor, and I have been shooting a long time. You leave them children with me, and you ride. I'll keep 'em alive till you get back." Elias looked at the door behind him. He thought about 3 small bodies curled in the bunk. He thought about a small hand around his 2 fingers. He thought about the words Papa spoken by a boy who had not spoken in 3 months. He thought about a man with a gold star and a tin of lamp oil. "All right," he said. "All right," the old man agreed. Elias went back inside. Ruth was sitting up in the bunk. She was watching the door. She had heard every word, he could see it in her eyes. "Miss Ruth?" "You're leaving us." "Miss, I'm going for a paper. A paper that proves the land is yours. If I get that paper to Cheyenne, then Sheriff Monroe can't take you. You hear me? It's the only way. You said you'd stay between us and the door. Mr. Worth is going to stay. Mr. Worth has been on this land 30 years, and he is a man you can trust with your life and your brother's life. I would not leave you with him otherwise." She stared at him. "You coming back?" "Yes, miss." "You swear?" "I swear." "On what?" "On my mother's grave, miss. On every dead friend I left in Tennessee. On the head of your brother, which I have seen wet with fever, and which I do not aim to see in the ground." She swallowed. "All right, mister." "Miss Ruth." He crossed to the bunk. He crouched down. He looked her in the eye, and for 1 second he was not a 43-year-old cowhand, and she was not a 7-year-old orphan. They were 2 soldiers in a war neither of them had asked to fight. "There's something I got to ask," he said. "Ask. Did your mama hide a paper somewhere on the land? A deed paper?" Ruth's eyes went wide. "How do you know about that?" Elias's heart kicked. "Where, miss?" "In the well house. In the well house behind a loose rock. Pa put it there. He said if anything ever happened, we was to find it. He told me. He told me, 'fore the man came. In the well house. There's a stone behind the bucket peg. He put a tin in there. He said, 'Ruthie, you remember this. You remember this if anything ever happens.'" Elias closed his eyes 1 second. Just one. "Thank you, miss." He stood up. He took the Colt off the table. He put it in his belt. He picked up his hat. "Mister?" "Yes, miss." "Don't die." "No, miss." "I mean it." "So do I." He went to the bunk one more time. He looked down at Tommy, who was still sleeping, his cheeks slack and his eyelashes long and dark against his pale face. He laid his hand just for a second on the boy's small chest. He felt the breath go in. He felt it come out. "You hold on, son," he said quietly. "You hold on. Pa's coming back." He didn't know he had said Pa till he heard the word in the room. He did not take it back. He went outside. He saddled Banjo. Caleb Worth stood by the step with his buffalo gun across his arms. "Mr. Worth, there's a Colt on the table. 6 in the cylinder. The boy gets fevers. There's a rag and a basin. The girl Ruth knows what to do." "I got it, son. If anybody comes up that trail that ain't me, I know what to do." "Mr. Worth." "Ride, son." Elias swung up. He turned Banjo's head south and east toward the Calloway homestead, toward a burned-out cabin he had never seen, toward a well house and a loose stone and a tin that might still hold the only thing standing between 3 children and a sheriff with a gold star. He rode hard. He rode the bay across 2 ridges and through a creek bottom and up over a ridge that gave him a view of the whole long valley below. And somewhere in the middle of that ride, he understood with a clarity that did not surprise him that he was not going to leave those children. Not ever. Not as long as he had breath in him. He had ridden into Redemption Creek yesterday, a man with no people. He was riding out of it a father. The Calloway homestead, when he came up on it, was worse than he had pictured. Black bones of a cabin where the roof had fallen in. A chimney still standing sooted black. A garden gone to weeds. A milk cow's bell hanging on a fence post with no cow under it. 3 small wooden crosses in a row at the edge of the meadow where somebody had buried what was left. 3 crosses, not 2. Elias swung down. He walked to the crosses. He took off his hat. The first 2 were carved with names. Thomas Calloway. Sarah Calloway. The third one had no name. It was smaller than the others. It said only baby. He stood there a long beat. Then he put his hat back on. He turned. He walked to the well house, which still stood a little ways off from the burned cabin because the sheriff's fire had not reached so far. The bucket peg was on the back wall. He found the stone behind it. He worked it out with the blade of his knife. His hands were steady. He had not been steady in 20 years, and now he was steady again, because there was a child sleeping in a line shack who had said the word Pa, and a sheriff with a gold star riding the wrong road, and a meadowlark singing somewhere, and a tin behind a stone in a well house in the middle of a Wyoming summer. The tin came out in his hand. He opened it. There was the deed, folded careful. Sarah Calloway's name on it in her father's old hand. A territorial seal. A registry stamp from Cheyenne dated 1869. There was also something else in the tin. A second paper. He unfolded it. It was a letter. In a woman's careful schoolteacher script. "If you are reading this, it means we are dead, and Sheriff Frank Monroe has likely killed us. He has come 3 times to demand the land. He has threatened my husband and my children. He has said if we will not sell, he will take it by other means. I leave this with the deed because I do not trust the courthouse in Buffalo. I have heard the clerk there is his cousin. If you are reading this and you are a friend, take this to the territorial marshal in Cheyenne. His name is Marshal Henry Beaumont. Tell him Sarah Jensen Calloway sent you. Tell him I said the bear is in the hen house." Elias read it twice. He folded it back. He put both papers in his shirt against his skin. He buttoned his shirt over them. He walked back to Banjo. He swung up. He turned the bay's head west toward Cheyenne, toward the territorial marshal, toward a long, hard ride that he had not planned on, but that he was going to make anyhow because... He stopped. Banjo stopped under him. In the dust of the road that led from the homestead back toward town, 3 horses had passed. Recent. The dust was still settling on the prints. 3 shod horses ridden hard-ridden in the direction of the Bar W line shack. Elias Croft sat very still on his horse in the middle of a Wyoming meadow with a deed and a letter against his skin, and the sun climbing toward noon. And he understood with a quiet, that was worse than any shout, that Sheriff Frank Monroe had not believed Caleb Worth after all. He turned Banjo's head north. He kicked. He rode. Banjo's hooves tore up the road like the bay knew what was waiting at the end of it. Elias didn't have time for prayer. He had time for one thought, and the thought was faster. He had time for one prayer, and the prayer was the same word. Faster. He cut the trail at the second creek and didn't go around. He went through. Banjo took the water in 3 jumps and came out the other side with mud to the hocks and his ears flat back, and Elias crouched low against the bay's neck and whispered the only thing he could whisper. "Come on, son. Come on. Come on, come on, come on." A mile out, he heard the shot. One shot. From a long gun. Elias's stomach went to ice. A second shot. Same gun. A third shot different. A pistol. Then silence. He kicked the bay harder than he had ever kicked a horse in his life. When he came over the last ridge above the line shack, what he saw stopped his heart inside his chest. 3 horses. 3 saddled horses tied at the rail. 1 man on the ground in the yard, face down, not moving. A second man on the porch step, half slumped against the doorframe with a hand pressed to his thigh and red blooming through his fingers. The cabin door was open, and on the porch, sitting up with his back against the wall, was Caleb Worth. The buffalo gun was across his knees. The old man's white shirt was wet from the collar to the belt. The wet was red. Elias didn't slow down. He came off Banjo at a flat run before the bay had even stopped moving. He drew the Colt. He came up on the porch with the gun out front, and the deputy on the step lifted his head and saw him and started fumbling for a sidearm, and Elias put a knee on the man's wrist and pressed hard. "Stop! You son of a— stop!" The deputy stopped. "How many?" "What? How many, mister? How many of you come up here?" "3. Just 3. Where's Monroe?" The deputy didn't answer. Elias pressed harder on the wrist. He heard the small bones grind. "Where is he?" "Inside. He went inside." Elias's blood went cold. "Caleb." He didn't look at the old man. He kept his eyes on the deputy. "Caleb, you with me?" "I'm with you, son." The voice was a wet rasp. "He got past me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, son. He got past me at the door." "How long?" "A minute, maybe 2. Elias took the deputy's gun. He took it, and he stood up, and he put the muzzle of his own Colt under the man's chin. "You move from this step, mister. I will come back and finish you. Are we clear?" "Clear." "Caleb." "I got him." "Can you—" The old man lifted the buffalo gun with shaking hands and laid the muzzle across the deputy's chest. "I got him, son. Go." Elias went. Through the open door, into the cabin, into the dim of it after the high sun, eyes adjusting gun up, breath held, and the first thing he saw was Sheriff Frank Monroe standing in the middle of his one-room cabin with his back to the door and Tommy in his arms. Tommy was kicking. Tommy was kicking and twisting and not making one sound, and the wooden horse was on the floor at Monroe's feet, snapped in 2. Ruth was in the corner. Abby was behind her. Ruth had a kitchen knife. 7 years old, and she had a kitchen knife held out in front of her body, and her hand was shaking, but the knife was not coming down. "Put him down." Monroe turned slow. "Mr. Croft." "Put him down, Sheriff." "Now, Mr. Croft. There ain't no call." "Put him down." Monroe smiled. The same nothing smile from the boardwalk in Redemption Creek. "You shoot me, Mr. Croft, this boy goes down with me. I got him by the throat. You see that? I got him good." Elias saw it. The big hand around Tommy's small neck, the pond-water eyes above the waxed mustache. "Mister?" Tommy's voice, tiny, strangled. "Mister?" "I'm here, son." "Mister, he's the man." "I know, son." "He's the man with the oil." "I know, son. I know." "Boy, you shut your mouth." Monroe's hand tightened. Tommy's small face went red. "You shut that mouth, or I will shut it for you." "Sheriff." Elias's voice was very, very quiet. You squeeze that boy's throat one more time, and I am going to put a bullet through your eye, and I do not care what falls. You wouldn't dare. Try me." A long, terrible beat. Monroe loosened his grip. Just a hair. Tommy gasped and started to cry without sound. "Now we are going to talk like men, Mr. Croft. We ain't going to talk like nothing. You are outnumbered. I just shot one of your deputies in the yard. I just got the other one under an old man's buffalo gun on the porch. You got nobody, Sheriff. You got nobody, and you got a dying grip on a 5-year-old boy, and you and I both know how this is going to go. You don't know anything about how this is going to go." Monroe's smile was gone now. "I am the law in this territory." "You're a murderer in this territory. Two different things. Prove it." "I aim to." Something flickered in Monroe's eyes. "You've been to the homestead." "I have." "You found nothing." "I found everything." The sheriff's grip on Tommy went loose for 1/2 a second, and that was all Elias needed. "Tommy down." The boy went limp, just dropped, like a sack. Elias had told him down, and the boy had heard it, and the boy had trusted him, and Tommy slid through Monroe's surprised hands and hit the floor and rolled, and Ruth was already moving, was already dragging him backward across the boards toward the corner where Abby was waiting, and Elias fired. The shot took Monroe in the right shoulder, spun him. The sheriff's pistol came up anyway, faster than Elias had reckoned a man with a hole in him could move, and the sheriff fired back, and Elias felt the round take him in the side, just above the hip, hot and clean like a brand. He fired again. Monroe went down. Not dead. Down. The pistol skittered across the boards. "Ruth!" Elias didn't look at her. He kept the Colt on the man on the floor. "Ruth, get the pistol." She got it. 7 years old. She walked across her own cabin with a knife in one hand and a deputy's pistol in the other, and she carried them both to Elias, and she put them in his belt, because his left hand was now pressed to the hot wet spot at his side. "You're shot, mister." "I know I'm shot, miss." "Mister, it's all right. Get the rope. Off the peg. Quick now." She got it. Elias bound Sheriff Frank Monroe's hands behind his back with his own knee in the man's spine. He did it one-handed. He did it with red blooming through his shirt and a small girl standing beside him with eyes the size of dinner plates, and he did it with a 5-year-old boy in the corner who had finally started to wail. "It's all right, son." Elias pulled the last knot tight. "You hear me, Tommy? You hear your sister Ruth and your sister Abby? You hear me, son? It's done. It's done. He can't hurt you no more." The boy could not stop screaming. Ruth went to him. She pulled him into her lap on the floor, and she rocked him, and she pressed her mouth to his hair, and she said, "Shh, baby, shh, Tommy, Tommy, listen. Listen to Ruthie. He's tied up, Tommy. Mister tied him up. He can't hurt us no more. Listen, baby. Listen to your sister." Abby was crying too, but quiet. She crawled into the lap with her brother and her sister, and the three of them held each other in a knot in the corner of the cabin, while Elias Croft stood up slow and pressed his hand harder to his side and walked careful out the door to the porch. Caleb Worth was still upright, just barely. The deputy on the step was still alive, bleeding from the leg but alive and not going anywhere. "Caleb!" Elias dropped to one knee beside the old man. "Caleb, where you hit? Chest? Lung? Don't think so. Let me see." He pulled back the wet shirt. The hole was high near the shoulder in the fleshy part. Bleeding hard, but not the bright color that meant a man was done. "You'll live." "I know I'll live, son. I've been shot before." "You've been shot for me." "I've been shot for them children." Elias closed his eyes one beat. "Mr. Worth." "What?" "I owe you." "You don't owe me a damn thing, Elias Croft. Now bind that hole in your side before you bleed out on my porch." The deputy on the step started to speak. Mister, please, I didn't know. I swear to God I didn't know about no fire. I didn't know about no Callaways. He said it was a runaway boy and 3 thieves. He said, 'Quiet. I got a wife, mister. I got a wife and a baby coming.'" "Quiet." The deputy went quiet. Elias stood. He went back into the cabin. He took down a clean shirt from the peg and tore it into strips with his teeth and his good hand. He pressed a wadded strip to his own side and tied another strip around it tight enough to make him grunt. He came back out. He pressed a second wadded strip into Caleb Worth's hand. "Hold this. Hold it tight." "I got it. I got a ride." "You ain't riding nowhere, son. You're shot." "I'm riding to Cheyenne, the marshal. You'll be dead before you're halfway." "Then I'll be dead halfway, but I'll have road." "Elias." "Caleb, listen. He has friends. You hear me, Monroe? He has a brother in Buffalo, a cousin who's a clerk deputies we ain't met. We got hours, maybe less. Word's gonna get back. If I do not put this deed in the territorial marshal's hand by tomorrow night, those kids are still in the wind. You understand me?" "I understand you, but you can't ride." "Then I'll—" "Mr. Elias." It was Ruth. She had come out onto the porch. Tommy was on her hip, his face buried in her neck. Abby had a fistful of her skirt. "Mr. Elias, you can't ride." "Miss, you can't. I seen men shot before. You ride hard, you'll bleed out. Pa told me that. Pa was a soldier. He said a man with a hole in his side don't ride. He stops. He gets it stitched. He stops first or he dies." Elias looked at her small face, at the way she had said Pa was a soldier, like a girl reciting a lesson she had been taught for emergencies just like this one. "Miss Ruth, there ain't time." "There is time, mister." Her chin came up. "If somebody else rides." "There ain't nobody else. There's me." The cabin went quiet. "No, miss. I can ride. Pa taught me. I can ride better than Abby, and I weigh less than you, and I won't bleed." "No." "Mr. Elias." "No, miss. You are 7 years old, and Cheyenne is 200 miles. I will go as far as I can." "Miss, there's a stage road. I've been on it once with Ma. There's a stage road that goes south through Douglas. If I can get to the stage road, I can pay a stage with Ma's ring, Mr. Elias. I got Ma's ring." She put her hand to her chest, where something hung on a string under her dress. "I've been carrying it. The man, the sheriff, he didn't find it. I got Ma's ring, and I can pay a stage, and I can go to Cheyenne, and I can put the paper in the marshal's hand, and I can say what Tommy seen." Elias stared at her. Mr. Elias, you said you'd keep us alive. You said, I am telling you the way to do it." "I can't put a child on a horse alone for 200 miles. "You can't put a child in the ground neither, mister." The old man on the porch made a small sound. Elias looked at him. Caleb Worth's eyes were wet. "Smart girl," he whispered. "Mr. Worth, she's right, son. She is 7 years old, and she has been keeping 2 littler ones alive for 3 months in a town that wanted 'em dead. You think she can't ride a horse to a stage road?" Elias looked at her again. The dust on her face, the thin shoulders, the chin that would not go down. "Miss Ruth." "Mister, if I let you do this—" "You will. If I let you do this, you go to Mrs. Hadley first. You hear, not the stage. Mrs. Hadley at the Mercantile. She is your mama's cousin's girl. She told me. She knew your mama. She will help you. She will put you on the stage herself, and she will pay the fare, and she will telegraph ahead to Cheyenne." Ruth's eyes went wide. "She knew, Ma. She knew her miss. She told me your mama was a good woman. She is the only soul in that town who will help you, and she will help you. I would bet my life on it." "You are betting your life on it, mister." "I know I am." A small pause. "Mr. Elias." "What?" "I am scared." "I know you are, miss. I am real scared." "You are the bravest soul I have ever met in my life, Ruth Calloway. I have rode with cavalry. I have seen men charge cannon. I have not met one of them braver than you. You hear me?" Her chin trembled. She pressed her face against Tommy's hair 1 second. Then she lifted it. "All right, mister. All right." He turned his head. The cabin behind him. The bound man on the floor. The dying day still hours from done. "Caleb, can you hold Monroe?" "I can hold him. Tie the deputy too. I'll sit on the porch with the buffalo gun and shoot any man comes up the road that ain't you or the territorial marshal." You're shot. I've been shot before. Caleb. Elias Croft. Get on with it. He got on with it. He went back inside. He went to Tommy, who was now sitting on the floor alone for a moment, while Ruth was outside making a deal with a grown man over the life of her family. He bent down. He picked up the broken pieces of the wooden horse. He put them in his pocket. Tommy. The boy looked up. Son, I am gonna fix this. You hear me? I am gonna fix this horse. When I see you again, I will have it whole. That is a promise. The boy nodded. Once. Tommy. Your sister Ruth is gonna ride a long way for you. She is gonna ride to a city. She is gonna come back. The boy nodded again. You hold on for her. You hear me, son? You hold on. You eat what Mr. Worth gives you. You drink water. You do not get a fever. You do not get a fever, Tommy. You hold on. Pa. The word again. Tommy reached out one small hand. He laid it on Elias's bound side on the strip of torn shirt, very gentle. Pa hurt. A little, son. A little. Pa, stay. I have to go for a little while, Tommy. I have to take Ruth as far as the town. Mr. Worth is gonna stay with you. Then I have to get fixed by the doctor. Then I am coming back. Pa, stay. Elias's eyes burned. As soon as I can, son. As soon as I can. He bent. He pressed his forehead against the boy's small hot one. He stayed there one breath. 2. He stood up. He went back outside. Banjo was tied at the rail, blowing hard but ready. The deputy's bay was at the rail, too smaller, faster a horse a child could handle. Miss Ruth, can you ride that bay there? I can ride him, mister. Then mount up. She mounted up. She had to climb the rail to do it. She did it without help. Abby. Elias turned. Abby, you stay with Mr. Worth. You stay close. You bring him water. You can do that. Yes, mister. The little girl's voice was almost a whisper. You are brave too. You hear me? You are as brave as your sister. She nodded. Caleb? Go, son. Daylight's burnin'. Elias mounted Banjo. The wound at his side opened a little under the bandage. He felt the wet bloom. He set his teeth. Miss Ruth, we ride together to the edge of town. I take you to Mrs. Hadley's back door. I do not show my face. I ride on to the doctor. You go with Mrs. Hadley. You do not look back. Understood? Understood, mister. All right. They rode. He kept Banjo to a slow, steady canter. The bay matched it. Ruth rode like a child of farmers and soldiers, low in the saddle, her hands quiet. She did not cry. She did not speak. A mile from town she said, Mr. Elias. Yes, miss? What if Mrs. Hadley turns me out? She won't, miss. What if she does? You ride 2 doors down. There is a church. The Reverend's name is Pell. You tell him your mama was Sarah Jensen Calloway. You tell him there's a deed. You tell him a man named Frank Monroe killed your folks for it. Reverend Pell is an old man and a tired one, but he is a Christian, and he will not turn out a child. And if he does, Miss Ruth, if both of them turn you out, you ride to the livery. There is a man there named Pete. Pete drinks too much, and he is no friend of the sheriff. You give him the ring. You tell him to put you on the next stage south. You tell him the territorial marshal will pay him double when you get there. How do you know all these people, mister? You been in town one day. I have been listening all day, miss. A man learns a town fast when he has to. She looked at him. Just looked. Yes, mister. A beat. Mister. Miss. You are a good man. No, miss. I am a man who saw 3 children behind a saloon. That's the same thing. He didn't answer. He couldn't. They came up on the back side of Redemption Creek through the cottonwoods along the creek. He did not let Banjo make a sound. He swung down behind the mercantile. He helped Ruth down. He took the deed and the letter from inside his shirt. He put them in her small hands. You hold these. You do not let go. You hear me, miss. You do not let go of these papers until they are in the hand of Marshal Henry Beaumont in Cheyenne. You say your mama said the bear is in the hen house. He will know what it means. You hold on. I will hold on. Miss Ruth. Mister. He looked at her. He took off his hat. He held it against his chest the way a man holds a hat at a graveside. You come back to us. Her eyes went bright. I will come back to you, Mr. Elias. I swear it. On what? On Tommy, on Abby, on my mama and my pa and the baby in the third grave. She had seen the third grave. She had known. He bent. He kissed the top of her head once the way a father does, and he set his hat back on, and he turned her toward the back door of Hadley's Mercantile. Knock soft. 3 times. Tell her who you are. Tell her I sent you. Tell her Mr. Croft says the bear is in the hen house. The bear is in the hen house. Go. She went. She knocked. 3 times. Soft. The door cracked. He saw Mrs. Hadley's face. He saw the woman's broad-shouldered frame go rigid. He saw her hand come up to her mouth. He saw her bend down fast and pull Ruth Calloway through the door and shut it behind her. He turned Banjo's head. He did not look back. He rode the long way around the town behind the livery, through the alley behind the saloon, until he came out on the south road. He pointed Banjo at it. He kicked. The bay went. 2 miles down the south road, the world started going gray at the edges. 3 miles, the gray went black. 4 miles. Elias Croft slid sideways out of the saddle and hit the dust of the road on his shot side, and the breath went out of him in a wet rush, and he lay there in the road and looked up at a long Wyoming sky going pink at its edges, and thought very calmly, I have done what I could do. He thought Tommy. Hold on, son. He thought Ruth. Make it. He thought Caleb. Keep that buffalo gun up. Then he thought nothing for a while. When he came back to himself, there were hands on him. A woman's hands. A voice saying, Easy, mister. Easy now. We got you. We got you. And a wagon jouncing under him, and the smell of horse sweat and lavender soap and coffee, and a man's voice saying, Drive, woman, drive. We got to get him to Doc Henley before the sun's down. He tried to speak. Ruth. What's that, Mr. Ruth, the girl. What girl? Mr. Mercantile. Mrs. Hadley. Tell her the bear is, he's out again, Henry. Drive. I am drivin'. The wagon jounced. Banjo trotted alongside riderless Faithful, his reins tied to the tailboard by some hand Elias hadn't seen. In the back of the wagon, with his shirt soaked through and a stranger's coat folded under his head, Elias Croft drifted in and out of the dying afternoon and dreamed of 3 small children in a corner and a 5-year-old boy who had said the word Pa. 40 miles to the north, on the porch of a line shack at the Bar W, an old man with a hole in his shoulder cocked a buffalo gun across his knees and listened to the sound of a horse coming up the road. 2 horses. 3. Caleb Worth sat up straighter. He laid the rifle across the porch rail. He squinted into the gold light of the falling day, and he saw the lead rider come over the ridge, and his breath stopped in his chest, because the lead rider was not the territorial marshal. The lead rider was wearing a deputy's badge, and behind him on a second horse, his hands tied to the saddle horn with blood on his face and a fresh cut across his cheek, was Reverend Pell. Caleb Worth did not move when he saw the badge. He did not move, and he did not lower the buffalo gun. He set it across the porch rail, steady as a fence post, and put his cheek to the stock and his eye down the long oiled barrel and waited. Worth? The rider out front pulled up at the gate. He kept his hands wide. Caleb Worth, don't shoot. It's Tully. Bill Tully. Don't shoot, you old fool. Bill Tully. It's me. Bill Tully. You got a star on your vest and a tied-up preacher behind you and a sheriff in my cabin with a hole in him. And I do not know one thing about which side you're standing on, so you keep your hands wide and you keep your mouth slow. Caleb, listen to me. Talkin'. I never rode for Frank Monroe. Star says you do. Star says I'm a deputy of this territory. Star don't say I am for sale. There is a difference. Caleb Worth did not lower the gun. Prove it. The reverend behind me is bleedin'. Lower the gun and let me cut him loose, and I will prove it. Reverend Pell. You hear me, sir? I hear you, Mr. Worth. The old preacher's voice was thin. He's telling the truth. He cut a man loose to bring me here. What man? The man Frank Monroe sent to kill me. Bill rode up on him in the alley behind the parsonage and put a gun to his head. The man is in the jailhouse cellar in Buffalo, hog-tied with the marshal's deputy sitting on him. Caleb Worth closed one eye. He kept the other on Bill Tully. Bill, Caleb. You go through that gate slow. You get down. You walk to me. You leave that pistol on the saddle. All right. Tully did it. He swung down. He laid the pistol on the saddle. He walked hands wide up to the porch. Caleb Worth did not lower the buffalo gun until Bill Tully was 3 feet away and he could see the man's eyes. He saw what he needed to see. All right. He laid the rifle across his knees. Cut the preacher down. Bring him up. We got a sheriff to deal with. Where is he? Inside, tied, shot in the shoulder, cussing the boards. Caleb, there is something you got to know. What? Frank Monroe ain't the top of this. The old man went still. Say that again. Frank Monroe ain't the top of this. He's the gun. He ain't the head. Then who is? Bill Tully looked at him a long beat. Judge Erasmus Kane, out of Buffalo. He's the one signing the paper. He's the one buying the land cheap from the dead. He's the one with the brother at the Union Pacific Land Office. Frank Monroe is a hand. Kane is the man. Caleb Worth lowered his head 1 slow inch. Lord have mercy. That's what I've been saying for 2 years, Caleb. Quiet. To my own self. Watchin'. Buildin' the case. I knowed about the Callaways. I knowed, and I could not move yet because all I had was a bad feelin' and a sheriff's word against 3 little orphans. And now I got the man Monroe sent to kill the preacher. And he has been talkin' Caleb. He has been talkin' fast. He has been namin' names. Caleb Worth let out a long breath. Bill, listen to me. There is a deed. The Callaway girl is on a stage to Cheyenne with that deed and a letter from her mama. The letter names Frank Monroe. It named the judge? I do not know. I did not read it. Elias Croft did not read it more than to know it was sworn truth in a dead woman's hand. Where is Croft? Shot. Riding south for the doctor at Box Elder if he's still on his horse, or laying in a ditch if he ain't. Bill Tully closed his eyes 1 beat. Lord, you keep prayin', Bill. We need it. The Reverend was off his horse now. He came up the steps, slow, his hands still raw and red where the rope had been a crust of blood on his cheek, where someone had hit him with the back of a pistol. Mr. Worth? Reverend? The little girl. Ruth. She came to me. She came to my back door at sundown. She had the papers. She told me the words her mama left. Caleb Worth's head came up. She did. She did. And what did you do, Reverend? I put her on a wagon, Mr. Worth. I put her on the back of Pete Halloran's freight wagon under a tarp at 5 o'clock with a half a loaf of bread and a canteen and $10 in silver, and Pete drove her south to Douglas to put her on the morning stage to Cheyenne. The old rancher closed his eyes. You put her on Pete's wagon. I did. Pete drinks. Pete don't drink when there is a child under his tarp, Mr. Worth. I have known Pete Halloran 26 years. He buried his own little girl in 74, diphtheria. He has not drunk a drop on a Tuesday since. He'll get her there. Reverend, you have done a fine thing. I have done a thing that should have been done 2 years ago. The cabin door creaked behind them. Abby Calloway stood in the doorway. Her face was wet. She was holding Tommy in her thin arms. Tommy's face was on her shoulder, and his eyes were closed and his cheeks were red. Mr. Caleb. Yes, miss. He's hot again. The old man's heart lurched inside his chest. How hot, miss? Real hot. He's burnin'. He won't open his eyes. Bill Tully was already moving. He was on the porch and through the door and across to Abby in 3 strides. He put his hand to the boy's forehead. He pulled it back. Caleb, this boy needs the doctor. The doctor is in the south, Bill. The doctor is 16 miles. Then I am riding him 16 miles. You just got here. I just got here, and I am riding out again. Caleb, this boy is the witness. This boy lives, the judge hangs. This boy dies. Bill Tully did not finish the sentence. Caleb Worth did not need him to. Take my mare. She's faster than yours. There is a sheepskin in the lean-to. Wrap him good. Reverend, you ride with him. You hold him in the saddle in front of you. He will not let a stranger hold him, but he might let a preacher. He'll let me, the Reverend said. I baptized him. The old man looked up. You baptized him. I baptized all three of them Calloway children, in their mama's parlor, before the trouble started. Abby Calloway, who had not made a sound through any of it, suddenly put her face into her brother's hair and sobbed one hard sob. And then she said, quiet as a thing falling, Reverend, don't let him die. Miss Abby, I will not. He took the boy. Tommy did not wake. His small head fell against the preacher's shoulder, and his small hand still clutched something in a fist, and Caleb Worth saw what it was, and his throat closed. It was the broken half of a wooden horse. Elias had taken the other half. Tommy had kept his. The mare came around. Bill Tully helped the Reverend up. The Reverend sat the boy careful in front of him and wrapped the sheepskin tight, and Caleb Worth stood up off the porch on a leg that was going to give out any minute now, and laid his hand on the boy's small back. Tommy! The boy didn't open his eyes. Tommy, you hold on, son. You hold on. There is a man named Elias Croft who promised you a horse fixed. You hear me? You owe him a wooden horse, and a man does not die owing a debt. You hold on. The boy's small fingers tightened on the broken wood. It was the only answer he gave. Then they were gone down the road into the gold light of a falling Wyoming day. The Reverend and a sick child and a buffalo gun left empty on a porch, and an old man and a little girl alone with a tied-up sheriff in the cabin behind them. 200 miles south, in the back of a freight wagon under a tarp that smelled of flour and harness oil, Ruth Calloway lay very still and listened to the wheels. She had not slept. She would not sleep. The papers were inside her dress against her skin where her heart was. She had not let them go since the man named Elias had put them in her hands. The wagon hit a rut. Ruth bit her lip and did not make a sound. Easy, Missy. Pete Halloran's voice from the bench low. Easy. 2 more hours. We make Douglas by midnight. Stage out at 6. You sleep if you can. I can't sleep, Mr. Pete. I know it. Mr. Pete. What, Missy? Did you really know my mama? I knew your mama, Missy. I knew your daddy. Your daddy bought hay off me 3 winters running. Your mama brought me a pie one Christmas, apple, with a top crust she done in a star pattern. I never forgot that pie. Ruth was quiet. Mr. Pete. Missy. Do you think the man Elias is gonna die? Pete Halloran was silent a long beat. Missy, I am gonna tell you the truth because you have earned it. I do not know. He was shot when he got on the horse, and he was shot worse when he got off it, and the country between Redemption Creek and Box Elder is hard country. I do not know. She put her face against the rough wood of the wagon bed. He said he would come back. Then he aims too. Pa said he'd come back too. Pa said I'll be back before sundown, Ruthie, and he did not come back. Missy. And the baby in the 3rd grave. Ma was carrying him. Ma was carrying him when the man come, and she had him too soon, and he did not live but 4 hours, and Ma died of the burnin' the next day, and Ruthie. And Pa was already gone. Pa was gone in the bed. So the 3rd grave is the baby. We dug it, me and Abby. We dug it with a kitchen spoon because there was nothing else to dig with, and Ruthie, Missy, hush baby, hush now. She hushed. The wheels turned. The horses pulled. After a long time, Pete Halloran said quietly, Missy, Mr. Elias Croft is coming back. You hear me? I do not know him. But a man who pulls a child out of a trash barrel and rides for the territorial marshal with a hole in his side does not die of it. That kind of man dies in his own bed at 92, with a granddaughter holding his hand. You hear me, Ruthie Calloway? She did not answer for a while. Then very small. I hear you, Mr. Pete. The wagon rolled on. In the upstairs bedroom of a homesteader's cabin, 12 miles south of Box Elder Elias Croft, opened his eyes to lamplight, and a woman's hands on his side. Easy, mister. Easy. Don't sit up. Where? You're at the Henley place. Doc Henley pulled the bullet out an hour ago. You bled like a stuck hog, but you are not gonna die today. Day. What day? Tuesday yet. Sun's been down 2 hours. Elias closed his eyes one beat. Tried to do the figuring in his head. Tuesday. Ruth on the wagon. The stage at 6 in the morning. Cheyenne by Wednesday night. The marshal by Thursday. Ma'am, I got to get up. Mister, you do not got to do anything but lay there and let that stitch and set. Ma'am, there is a child. There is many children in this world, mister, and most of 'em are alive without you bleedin' through their floor. Ma'am, my name is Hannah Henley. My husband is the doctor. You are in our spare bed. You will lay in it. We have sent for help. He opened his eyes. Help. My husband knows you. He served with you in the war. Tennessee 64. Elias's vision swam. Ben Henley. Ben Henley. Ben Henley's house. You laid in the road in front of our south pasture, mister. My husband knew you the second he turned you over. He has been cussin' over your stitches for an hour. He says the next time you come to visit, do it on a horse and not under one. Elias laughed. It hurt. He did not stop. Ma'am, Mrs. Henley, you got to listen to me. I am listenin'. There is a man named Frank Monroe. He is the sheriff in Redemption Creek. He has killed 4 families for their land. There is a girl, 7 years old. Ruth Calloway. She is on a wagon to Douglas. She is going to Cheyenne with a deed. There is a boy, 5 years old. He is sick. He gets fevers. He is at the Bar W with an old man named Caleb Worth who is shot in the shoulder. The woman's face did not change as he spoke. She was a doctor's wife. She had heard worse in pieces from worse men. Mister. Ma'am. My husband is at the Bar W. Elias stared at her. What? A rider come from Reverend Pell 2 hours ago. The boy was in fever convulsions. The Reverend was bringing him here. They met my husband on the road. My husband took the boy back to the Bar W with a doctor's bag. Said the boy could not be moved further. Said he would do it on the cabin floor or not at all. Elias tried to sit up. A man's hand bigger than the woman's, came down on his shoulder. Don't Croft. Ben. Lay down. Ben. The boy. The boy is alive. I rode here for more morphine. I am going back inside the hour. The boy is alive, Elias. He is breathin'. The Reverend is sitting on the floor with him singing hymns. Caleb Worth has a deputy named Tully there now, a good one, and the sheriff is in irons in the lean-to. Tully. Bill Tully. He has been building a case for 2 years against a judge named Kane in Buffalo. Kane is the head of it, Elias. Monroe was just the gun. Elias closed his eyes. A tear rolled out the corner. He did not wipe it. Ben. What? The girl. Ruth. She is on a stage. I know. The Reverend told me. She got my deed. I know. I can't reach Cheyenne. You don't need to. The territorial marshal has been waiting on this for 2 years. The girl walks in his door with that paper. You do not need to be there. He will move. Ben. What, brother? I want to see the boy. 3 days, Elias. 3 days and I will put you in a wagon and I will drive you to that cabin myself. 3 days. 3 days. I can't wait 3 days, Ben. Then you will lay in this bed and you will rip your stitches and you will die in front of my wife and the boy will lose another father. Is that what you want? No. Then lay there. Elias lay there. He turned his face to the wall. Ben. What? He called me Pa. The doctor said nothing. He called me Pa Ben, the boy. He said Pa and I never been called that in my life. I am 43 years old and I never been called Pa. I know, Elias. I can't lose him. You won't, Ben. I swear it on my own boy's Elias Croft. You will not lose him. I am riding back tonight, and I am going to keep that child alive." Elias closed his eyes. He slept. In a back room of Mrs. Hadley's mercantile in Redemption Creek, Mrs. Hadley sat by the cold stove, with her hands folded in her lap, and listened to two men ransack her front store. "Where is she, woman?" "I do not know what you are talking about, Mr. Beale. Frank Monroe's deputy says you took her in, the little Calloway girl. Where is she?" "Mr. Beale, I have not seen the Calloway children since they was thrown out of this store yesterday by your sheriff's order." "You are lying." "You are welcome to search." They searched. They turned over barrels. They emptied flour sacks. They broke a jar of penny candy, and the candy went rolling across the floor like marbles. Mrs. Hadley sat by the cold stove and watched the candy roll. When they were gone, she stood up. She walked to her front counter. She lifted a loose floorboard behind the counter where she had once kept a pistol her husband had given her before he died. She had a piece of paper in her hand. It was a telegram sent that afternoon at 4 o'clock from the Western Union office, 2 doors down to the Territorial Marshal in Cheyenne. It said, "Sarah Calloway's child arrives, stage Wednesday night. Bears mother's deed and witness testimony. Bear is in henhouse. Hadley." She held the receipt. She held it a long beat. Then she put it back under the floorboard. She put the floorboard back. She stood up and she went to the broken candy on the floor, and she got down on her knees, an old woman of 58 years, and she picked up each piece of candy and she put it back in a clean jar. Her hands shook. She did not cry until the jar was full. In the cabin at the Bar W. Tommy Calloway opened his eyes. The fever had broken an hour ago. Doc Henley's morphine was wearing off. The boy's small face was pale and slick, and his breath came light. The Reverend was beside him. The Reverend was holding his hand. "Tommy." The boy turned his head. "Tommy, there you are." "Ruthie. Ruth is on her way to a city, son. She is on a wagon. She has taken a paper to a marshal. She is gonna make it so the bad man can't hurt you no more." The boy's eyes filled. "Pa." "What, Tommy?" "Where is Pa?" "He is comin', son." "He hurt." "He is hurt, son, but he is comin'. He is comin' as soon as he can." Tommy closed his eyes one beat, opened them. "Reverend?" "Yes, son." "Tell Pa." "Tell him what, son?" The boy worked his small mouth. "Tell Pa I held on." Reverend Pell, who had buried 2 wives and 3 children of his own and a granddaughter, and had stood in a church basement saying graveside words over 1,000 souls in 51 years of ministry, put his face down against the boy's small, dirty hand and wept like he had not wept since 1862. He wept for 3 breaths. Then he sat up. He wiped his face on his sleeve. He took the boy's hand again. "I will tell him, Tommy. I will tell him the second I see him. I swear it before God." The boy's eyes drooped. He slept. He slept clean and even, and his small fist around the broken half of the wooden horse went slack, but did not let go. Outside on the porch, Caleb Worth and Bill Tully sat in the dark with the buffalo gun between them. "Bill." "Caleb." "How long till that judge knows?" "He knows now. He knew when Frank Monroe didn't come back. He has been knowing for hours. He has riders out by now. He will be on the courthouse steps in Buffalo at sunup with paper to sign and friends to swear. Cheyenne is 2 days for that little girl. I know it. What we got, Bill? We got a witness in this cabin. We got a deed on a stage. We got a sheriff in your lean-to. We got the man who tried to kill the preacher in a cellar in Buffalo talking fast. We got me and you and a buffalo gun and a Colt revolver. That's not much. It's more than the Calloways had 3 months ago, Caleb, and they took a piece out of him with what they had." The old man was quiet. "Bill." "What?" "I am going to live to see that judge hang." "You are." "I am going to live to see Frank Monroe walk into that courtroom in irons and look at that little boy in there on the witness stand and know. He will know, Caleb." The old man set his jaw. The cottonwoods whispered in the dark. 40 miles to the south, on a stage road that had not yet been opened for the day, a freight wagon rolled into Douglas at 1 in the morning and pulled into the alley behind the stage office. Pete Halloran climbed down. He went to the back of the wagon. He lifted the tarp. A small face looked up at him. 2 small papers pressed flat against a small chest. "Missy, we made it." "Mr. Pete?" "Yes." "What time is the stage?" "6 hours, Missy." "I will not sleep." "I know it." "Mr. Pete." "Missy, stay with me." Pete Halloran climbed up into the back of his own freight wagon. He sat on the boards beside the 7-year-old child who had ridden 200 miles inside her dress with a deed against her heart. He took off his own coat and put it over her. "I am right here, Missy. I am right here till the stage." Ruth Calloway closed her eyes. She did not let go of the papers. Outside, the moon went west across Wyoming. Somewhere a coyote called, and another answered. The bear was running. But the henhouse door was open, and the children of Sarah Jensen Calloway were still alive. Every one of them. The stage out of Douglas left at 6 minutes past 6 on a Wednesday morning, and Ruth Calloway was on it. Pete Halloran handed her up himself. He had spent the last of his silver on her ticket and her breakfast, and he had gone next door at 5:30 and woken the Western Union man with his fist on the door and paid for a second telegram to Cheyenne, sent in his own name, this time that said "Only child on 6 o'clock stage. Hold the door." "Missy." "Yes, Mr. Pete." "You sit by the window. You do not talk to no man. You do not eat what nobody offers you. You hold them papers. You watch the road." "Yes, Mr. Pete." "And Missy." "Yes." "When you get there, you do not stop walking. You walk straight from that stage to the marshal's office. The driver knows the way. He is a friend of mine. His name is Hap. He will see you to the door. You hear me?" "I hear you, Mr. Pete." He stepped back. He raised one hand. The driver clucked. The horses moved. The stage rolled. Ruth Calloway pressed her face to the glass and did not wave because her hands were inside her dress, both of them holding the papers tight against her heart. Pete Halloran stood in the road and watched the stage roll out of sight. And then he turned and walked slow back to his freight wagon, and he sat down on the bench, and he put his head in his hands. And an old freight driver, who had not cried in 12 years, cried for a child he barely knew. Then he wiped his face. He climbed up. He turned his team north. He had a dead girl's daughter to ride home for. The stage made Cheyenne at 9:30 on Wednesday night. A man was waiting at the depot. He was a tall man in a dark coat with a star on his vest that was bigger and plainer than Frank Monroe's had been. He had gray in his beard, and he carried a sawed-off in his offhand, and he was not alone. There were 4 men with him, 3 deputies and a court clerk with a satchel of papers, and they had been there since 6 o'clock that evening, because a telegram from a mercantile woman in Redemption Creek, and a second telegram from a freight driver in Douglas, had told them when to stand. When the stage rolled in, Marshal Henry Beaumont stepped forward. The driver Hap swung down. He nodded to the marshal once. "That's her Henry." The marshal stepped to the door. He opened it. A small girl in a torn dress sat on the bench with her hands inside her clothes and her eyes the size of dinner plates. "Miss Calloway." "Yes, sir." "My name is Henry Beaumont. I am the marshal of this territory." "Yes, sir." "Your mama wrote me a letter once. About 6 years ago. She wrote me about a man named Frank Monroe and a piece of land. I did not have nothing to act on then. I am sorry, miss. I am sorry I did not come sooner." Ruth Calloway looked up at him. "My mama said the bear is in the henhouse." Marshal Henry Beaumont, who had hunted men for 29 years and had not been moved by much, took off his hat and held it against his chest. "Yes, miss, he is, and we are about to put him out." Ruth pulled the papers out of her dress. She held them up to him in 2 small dirty hands. He took them. He took them like a man receiving a sacrament. He read them by the lantern at the depot right there with his deputies around him, and the stage horses blowing and the night wind off the prairie cold against his face. He read the deed. He read the letter. When he came to the line, The clerk in Buffalo is his cousin. His jaw went hard. When he came to the line, Judge Erasmus Kane has visited my husband twice with the sheriff, and once alone he closed his eyes one beat. When he came to the line at the bottom of the letter, written smaller in a different ink like a thing added in a hurry on the last day. If my children live, please let one of them grow up safe. Marshal Henry Beaumont folded the paper careful and put it inside his coat against his shirt. He looked down at Ruth Calloway. Miss. Yes, sir. You will sleep tonight at my own house. My wife is waitin'. She has put fresh sheets on the bed in our daughter's old room, and she has made beef stew and cornbread, and there is a bath drawn. You hear me, miss? Yes, sir. Tomorrow morning before the sun is up, I am riding north with 30 men. We will be in Buffalo before the courthouse opens. Judge Erasmus Kane will not finish his breakfast a free man. You hear me, miss? Yes, sir. You done it, Miss Calloway. Her chin went up. It went up, and it broke, and she put her hands over her face, and she was 7 years old, finally all the way down to the bone. Marshal Henry Beaumont picked her up. He picked up a 7-year-old girl who had ridden 200 miles with a deed against her heart, and he carried her on his arm out of the depot and into the back of his own buggy, and his wife was waiting on the seat with a quilt, and the marshal handed Ruth Calloway over, the way a man hands over the most precious thing he has ever held. There, child, the woman whispered and folded the quilt around her. There now, there now. Ruth Calloway put her face into a stranger's shoulder and slept for the first time in 3 days. Marshal Henry Beaumont rode at the head of 30 men into Buffalo, Wyoming at 5:30 on Thursday morning, and Judge Erasmus Kane had not finished his coffee. The judge tried the courthouse door. The courthouse door was held shut from the outside by a deputy named Bill Tully, who had ridden in from the Bar W at full dark with a sworn statement from a sheriff in irons in a lean-to and a tied-up assassin in a cellar and a 5-year-old witness alive in a cabin with a doctor. The judge tried the back door. The back door was held by a deputy of the territorial marshal. The judge tried the window. The window was held by Henry Beaumont. When they took Erasmus Kane out of his own courthouse in his own dressing gown with a warrant in the marshal's hand, and the morning sun coming up over the bighorns. The people of Buffalo and Redemption Creek and 4 small ranches along Beaver Creek came out of their houses and stood on the boardwalks in their nightclothes and watched a judge walk to jail. Nobody cheered. Nobody had to. Sheriff Frank Monroe was already in irons in a wagon behind the marshal's horse. The clerk, who was his cousin, had been pulled from his bed at 4 in the morning. 3 deputies who had ridden for him had been arrested before sunup. The man who had gone to kill the Reverend was singing in the cellar of the Buffalo jail, naming names, naming dates, naming the night and the lamp and the tin of oil at the Calloway homestead. By Thursday noon, the bear was out of the henhouse. By Thursday night, the bear was in a cell. In the upstairs bedroom of Doc Henley's homestead, Elias Croft sat up in bed for the first time and asked for his boots. You ain't getting your boots? Hannah? I am Mrs. Henley to you, Elias Croft, and you are not getting your boots. Hannah Henley. I have laid in this bed 2 days. I have a boy at the Bar W. I am going to him. Doc said 3 days. Doc is at the Bar W with him. Doc is not here. Doc would say, go now. Hannah Henley stood in the doorway with her arms crossed. She stood there a long beat. Then she said, wagon, not horseback. I drive. You lay in the back. Hannah. That is the deal, mister, or I go downstairs, and I get my husband's other gun, and I pin you to that bed at gunpoint till he gets back. Do not test me. Elias Croft began to laugh. It hurt. He did not stop. She drove him in the wagon. She drove him 41 miles, slow and easy, on the bad places fast, on the good. And Elias Croft lay in the bed of her wagon on a folded quilt, with his hand pressed to his side, and his eyes on the sky, going through colors he had not had time to look at in 20 years. He thought about a little boy with broomstick legs. He thought about a little girl with a knife and a pistol and a deed against her heart. He thought about the smallest one, Abby, who had cried quiet for 2 days and had brought water to a shot old man, and had held her brother through a fever. And who was he? Understood now, the easy one to forget, and the one no one should forget. He thought about the third grave at the homestead. The baby. Sarah Jensen Calloway's last child. The one she had carried into the fire. He thought, Lord, if this works out, I am going to build a stone over those four. I am going to build a stone for that woman and her man and the babe, and a small one for the wooden horse if it does not get fixed in time. The wagon rolled. The sun went west. Hannah Henley started to sing low. Shall we gather at the river? Because she had a husband on the road and a man in the back of her wagon who had been called Pa by a child not his own, and singing was the only thing she knew to do with a heart that full. They came up on the Bar W line shack at dusk. Elias Croft sat up in the wagon bed when he saw the cabin. He sat up, and the stitches in his side pulled, and the world went white at the edges, and he did not care. Ben, the cabin door opened. Doc Ben Henley came out onto the porch in his shirt sleeves, his hands stained brown with iodine. Easy, Croft. Easy. Lay back down. Ben, the boy. The boy is alive. The boy is alive. Yes, Elias. The boy is alive. He has been asking for you for 2 days. He would not eat his soup last night because he was saving his strength for you to walk through that door. You lay back down. I will help you in. You are going to walk in on your own feet because if you do not, that boy will think you died, and I am not having that on my conscience. He helped him down. Elias Croft walked across the yard of the Bar W line shack on Doc Henley's arm, with Hannah Henley on his other side, and his side burning like a brand, and his eyes wet, and not caring who saw it. He came up the porch step. Caleb Worth was on the porch in his rocker, his shoulder bound the buffalo gun across his knees, out of habit now, and not necessity. Croft. Worth. You look like hell. I been in it. Get in there, son. He's been waiting. Elias Croft pushed the door open. Tommy Calloway was sitting up in the bunk. He was thin and pale, and he had a clean shirt on 2 sizes too big that had come from somebody's saddlebag. His hair was washed. His face was washed. His small hands were folded in his lap on top of a blanket, and in his right hand was a piece of broken wooden horse. Abby was beside him on the bunk with one arm around his shoulders. When the door opened, Tommy looked up. His face did not change for one whole long second. Then it broke. His face broke the way a dam wall breaks, and he reached out both his small arms toward the door, and the wooden horse was in one fist, and the other was open and reaching, and he started to cry, and the sound of it was a sound Elias Croft heard inside the bones of his chest forever. Pa. I'm here, son. Pa. I'm here. Elias Croft crossed the room of the line shack on legs that were not his own. He sat down on the edge of the bunk. He took the boy in his arms, careful, mindful of the side, mindful of the small thin frame, and he held him. He held him a long time. Tommy did not let go. Tommy buried his face in the man's neck and held on with both small hands, and the wooden horse pressed against Elias's collar, and Elias felt the boy's small body shake, and then quiet shake, and then quiet, the way a child shakes when he is letting go of 3 months of fear. You held on, son. I held on. You held on for me. I held on for you. I'm proud of you, Tommy. The boy nodded against his neck. Just nodded. Abby had crawled across the bunk by then. She was leaning against Elias's arm without touching the wound the way a clever child learns to do, and she was saying, Mr. Elias, you came back. You came back. I came back, miss. You said you would, and you did. Yes, miss. And Ruthie. He looked up. The Reverend was in the corner of the cabin in the chair where he had sat with the boy for 3 nights running. The Reverend was smiling. A telegram came 2 hours ago, son, the Reverend said. Your Mr. Worth's neighbor brought it from the line at Casper. Marshal Henry Beaumont sent it himself. What did it say, Reverend? It said, bear in cell. Hen house safe. Child sleeping. Will deliver her home Saturday. Elias Croft put his face down against Tommy's hair. He cried. He cried for the first time since 1864. He cried with a 5-year-old boy on his chest, and a 5-year-old boy's broken horse pressing into his collarbone, and a little girl with one arm around his neck saying his name, the way a child says the name of a thing she has chosen. And he understood that he was not alone in the world anymore, and was never going to be alone again. Saturday afternoon, Marshal Henry Beaumont's buggy came up the road to the Bar W line shack with a small girl on the seat between him and his wife. She was wearing a new dress. It was blue. It had cost more money than her family had ever owned. The marshal's wife had bought it in Cheyenne and would not be argued with. She had her hair brushed. She had her mama's ring on a new ribbon around her neck. She had a deed in a leather folder in her lap that the marshal had let her hold the whole way home, because the marshal had understood Thursday morning at 5:30 in the courtroom of Buffalo that this child had carried that deed 200 miles inside her dress and had earned the right to set it down herself. When the buggy came over the ridge and Ruth Calloway saw the cabin, she did not wait for the marshal to stop the horses. She climbed down off the moving buggy. "Ruthie, hold on, child." She did not hold on. She hit the ground running. She ran across the yard of the Bar W in a blue dress 2 sizes too big, and she ran past Caleb Worth on the porch, and past the buffalo gun, and past the Reverend with his hat in his hand, and past Hannah Henley standing in the doorway with her arms crossed and a smile on her face she had been saving up for 2 days. She ran straight through the open door. Elias Croft was on the bunk with Tommy in his lap. Abby was beside them. Ruth Calloway hit them all 3 at once in a flying tangle of arms and dress and ribbon and ring, and she did not say one word for a full minute. She just held on. Then she pulled back. She put both her small hands on Elias Croft's stubbled face. "Mr. Elias? Miss Ruth, I done it. I know you done it, miss. I know. You done it. The marshal said the bear is in the cell." "The marshal told us, miss. The judge, too. They got the judge, too. They got the cousin in Buffalo. They got the man who hit the Reverend. They got everybody, Mr. Elias." "They got everybody, miss?" "Mr. Elias." "Yes, miss. Mama said in the letter, she said, please let one of them grow up safe." Elias Croft looked at her. He looked at her for a long time. "Miss Ruth." "Yes. All 3 of you are going to grow up safe. You hear me? Not one of you. All 3. I swear it before God and the marshal and Reverend Pell and everybody on this porch." She started to cry. She had not cried all the way back from Cheyenne in front of the marshal or his wife or the stage driver or anybody. She had been a soldier. She had carried her papers home. Now she was a child, and she cried into a 43-year-old cowboy shirt, the way a child should be allowed to cry, and Elias Croft held her with his free arm and held her brother and her sister with the other, and felt the 4 of them become one thing in the small dim cabin where a fire was going against the cool of the Wyoming evening. The trial in Buffalo took 11 days. Tommy Calloway was not put on the stand. Marshal Beaumont saw to it. The boy's sworn statement taken in the line shack with Reverend Pell beside him, and Doc Henley signing as witness, was admitted into evidence on the 2nd day, and was the thing that broke the room. The man who had been sent to kill the Reverend testified for 4 hours. He named 17 names. 6 of them went to prison. Sheriff Frank Monroe was hanged on the 18th of August in the courtyard of the Buffalo jail at 6 in the morning, and Caleb Worth was there in the front row with his shoulder bound and the buffalo gun left at home, and he watched, and he did not smile, and when it was done, he took off his hat, and he said, "For Sarah," and he walked away. Judge Erasmus Kane was sentenced to 25 years at the federal prison at Detroit. He died there in 1889 of a fever caught from a fellow inmate. He was buried without a stone. The Calloway homestead was returned in deed and title to Ruth Abigail and Thomas Calloway joint heirs by an order of the territorial court signed in Marshal Henry Beaumont's hand. The land was held in trust by one Elias Croft of the Bar W Ranch until the eldest heir came of age. Elias Croft never sold 1 acre of it. He built on the foundation of the burned cabin a new house that had 3 rooms and a loft and a kitchen, with a stove big enough to feed 4 hungry mouths, and a porch big enough for an old man to rock on. Caleb Worth retired from the Bar W in the fall and moved his wife and his rocker and his buffalo gun into the spare room of that new house. He died in that room in the spring of 1881. Tommy Calloway was sitting on the bed beside him holding his hand when he went. Reverend Pell baptized Elias Croft into the family of God on a Sunday afternoon at Beaver Creek, the September of that first year. He did not have to. Elias asked him to. The Reverend used the same creek where he had baptized Sarah Calloway 23 years before. Mrs. Hadley sold her mercantile in Redemption Creek in the autumn of 1880. She moved out to the Calloway homestead and took the room that had been Caleb's after he passed. She taught the 3 children their letters and their figures and their cousin's pie crust in a star pattern. Pete Halloran drove his freight wagon past the homestead every Tuesday for the rest of his life on his run between Casper and Buffalo. He never charged for a delivery he made to the Calloway place. He stopped for coffee. He stayed for supper. He died in 1894, a sober man. Doc Ben Henley delivered Tommy Calloway's first child in 1898. A girl. They named her Sarah. Bill Tully became sheriff of the new county formed when Redemption Creek dissolved its charter in 1882 and served 4 terms. The town of Redemption Creek was renamed by petition of its citizens in the spring of 1881. They called it Calloway Crossing. It is called that still. Ruth Calloway grew up tall and straight. She went to the Territorial College in Laramie, and she came home, and she kept the books for the ranch and the farms, and a dozen other small holdings up and down Beaver Creek that needed an honest hand. She married late. She married a quiet man who farmed wheat. She had 2 daughters. Abigail Calloway became a teacher at the school in Calloway Crossing. She taught for 41 years. 3 generations of children learned to read on her bench. Thomas Calloway grew up to be a tall, quiet man with pond sky eyes who never spoke much, but who when he spoke was listened to. He took over the ranch when Elias Croft was too old to ride. He raised cattle and horses and 3 children of his own. He kept his daddy's wooden horse on the mantel of his house every day of his life. Elias Croft had glued it back together in the winter of 1880, and the seam was small and dark, and the only place in the wood that ever showed its age. Tommy gave the horse to his own son in 1925. The son gave it to his daughter. Her great-granddaughter has it still in a glass case on a shelf in a house in Sheridan, Wyoming, beside a tintype of a 4-faced family on the porch of a homestead, and a letter folded careful and yellowed at the creases in a woman's careful schoolteacher hand. Elias Croft died at 92 years of age in his own bed at the Calloway homestead on the 14th of June, 1928. His granddaughter Sarah was holding his hand. Pete Halloran had been right. That is how that kind of man dies. The last word he spoke was Tommy. The boy had been gone 6 years already, but the man did not know it, and that was a mercy. He thought he was a young cowboy again on a road north out of Redemption Creek, with a small boy on a bay horse holding a wooden horse against his chest, and saying the word Pa for the first time, and he was going home, and the children were with him, and the long Wyoming summer was just beginning. He went out smiling. A man does not always get the family he is born to, but sometimes, in the dust of an alley behind a saloon in a town that does not deserve its name, a man gets down on his knees and he reaches out his big calloused hand to a child who is not his. And sometimes that is how a family begins. That is how this one began. That is how it ended. That is the whole of it.